$1 million. Free to play. You just need to survive. It's the Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Pick one team to win each week. Get it right, move on. Get it wrong, you're out. The last fan standing take home a guaranteed $1 million cash prize. And for every player who joins, we add $1 to the pot, up to $10 million. The Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Play free on the Fanatics app. App access open to all. Must be 21 plus and joined by 9/8 to play. No purchase necessary. U.S. only. Void where prohibited. Subject to complete terms. See fanatics.com/game rules.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
WABC New York, WRCR Haverstraw, and 107.1 WLIR Hampton Bays.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Flick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Good morning, James Flippin filling in for Noam Laden on this Friday, August 29th. And you're waking up to mostly cloudy skies around the tri-state. There's a slight breeze out there, 65 degrees right now in Midtown Manhattan. And here is the 3-day 77 WABC weather forecast to kick things off. Later today in the afternoon, a 20% chance of rain, mostly sunny otherwise, a high near 79. Tonight, going into Saturday, mostly clear, a low around 57. And then Saturday looking sunny with a high near 77 WABC degrees. Sunday, more sun, getting up to 79. 59 degrees in Summit, New Jersey. 68 degrees out in Sag Harbor on Long Island. And 65 here in Midtown Manhattan. Let's get into our top 5 headlines of the day.
The top 5 at 5.
The deadly Legionnaires disease outbreak in Harlem has claimed its 7th victim. Hundreds gathered last night for candlelight vigils as the victims of the church shooting in Minneapolis are being remembered. Also, the dad of one of the 2 little kids who died saying, hug your kids extra tight today. Another mess at Newark Airport. A ground stop has been lifted, but residual delays continue. Equipment trouble blamed, all while so many people are trying to get out of town for the Labor Day weekend. The story behind this CDC situation coming into focus. The woman who was appointed was then fired. She refused to leave her post. Apparently, vaccines are part of the whole thing. And the latest in the New York City mayor's race includes a look at which campaign is raising the most cash. Mayor Adams was denied matching funds by the City Campaign Finance Board. And for sure, after we get past the Labor Day holiday, the mayor's race, the campaigns anyway, going to start to heat up even as the weather cools down. The death toll connected to the recent Legionnaires disease outbreak in Harlem rising once again. City health officials confirming that a 7th person has died from that outbreak in central Harlem. And there have been a confirmed 114 cases of Legionnaires linked to the outbreak. 6 people still hospitalized. And it's all about the Legionella bacteria that can really flourish in some of the water supply areas that we've got around the city, talking about water towers, cooling towers, hot water heaters. This 7th death in the Harlem outbreak comes just days after word of 2 unrelated cases, both in the same condo building in the Bronx. And hot water is looked at as the issue there. The outbreak in Harlem has been linked to multiple cooling towers, and city officials say they think they've gotten that one under control because of mitigating measures taken to clean the bacteria out of the cooling towers. But obviously, when you have 114 cases, people in the hospital, and sadly, a 7th victim has died. So our top story there. But the father of one of the 2 children killed in this week's heartbreaking Minneapolis Catholic church shooting is remembering his son, Fletcher.
A coward decided to take our 8-year-old son, Fletcher, away from us. Because of their actions, we will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming.
Yeah, that's Jesse Merkel, his 8-year-old son, Fletcher, one of the two killed. And this happened inside Annunciation, Catholic Church in Minneapolis.
Fletcher loved his family, friends, fishing, cooking, and any sport that he was allowed to play.
Just horrific, obviously, this entire situation. And you learned as of yesterday that the shooter in the case is alleged to have known the inner workings of this chapel where this shooting unfolded. In essence, if you can picture it, the chapel is sort of adjacent to the Catholic school. And this was an early morning mass attended by various ages of students at the school, also some worshipers, and it was to celebrate the beginning of the school year. So this shooter, his mom used to work at the church as a secretary, and he also attended as a child. So he had close, intimate knowledge of the workings of the whole layout of the thing. And in his manifesto documentation, he's got a drawing of the pews. And obviously that diagramming was something that he put into effect with the actual attack. Thankfully for Jesse Merkel and his family, 2 other children that they have at the school weren't harmed.
While the hole in our hearts and lives will never be filled, I hope that in time our family can find healing.
Just unbelievable. You know, you think about that, the 2 kids who now they lost their brother, and this happened at their school. Jesse Merkel, the dad, showing a level of compassion with his comments, a level of strength and grace that's so impressive. Honestly, even before playing it, it kind of makes me emotional.
I'm hopeful that all the wounded are able to make a full recovery and return home to their families. And finally, all the people, and especially the children, impacted by this horrific event are able to recover mentally and find strength to live loving, happy, and full lives. Over the past day, I've heard many stories accounting the swift and heroic actions of children and adults alike from inside the church. Without these people and their selfless actions, this could have been a tragedy of many magnitudes more.
And some of Fletcher's classmates were there kind of watching the statement being delivered, and it looked to me like they were trying their hardest to sort of be, strong and stoic for the father. I mean, thinking about their classmate, their friend, who was just murdered, and then you're hearing from his dad. The thing that struck me is also there was a friend, maybe a fellow parent, holding his hand on Jesse Merkel's shoulder the whole time that he's delivering his statement. And obviously, that entire community is going to have to try to get through this together. So we'll hear more from the father there. We've also got some additional reporting on what the initial investigation is looking at, what the response has been at some sensitive locations around the rest of the U.S., and we'll also get into this other story, stories in the top 5, including the ground stop at Newark Airport, what's going on at the CDC, and the latest in terms of fundraising for the New York City mayor's race. WABC News Time, 5:09. James Flippin here for Noam Laden on Friday, August 29th. We've been talking a bit about this heartbreaking shooting in Minneapolis that unfolded Wednesday morning. Fletcher, 8 years old, one of the 2 kids murdered. His dad, Jesse Merkel, spoke yesterday.
Please remember Fletcher for the person he was and not the act that ended his life. Give your kids an extra hug and kiss today. We love you, Fletcher. You'll always be with us.
So cops and federal agents are now still trying to search for answers following this deadly shooting at the Catholic church/school there in Minneapolis. The 2 kids that were killed, ages 8 and 10, 17 other people injured, 14 of them children, all of them expected to survive. And they were all attending Mass at the Annunciation Catholic Church when this attack unfolded.
The weapons, a pistol, rifle, and shotgun, recently legally purchased. Police and federal agents searching for evidence at least 4 locations in Minneapolis, including a home where the killer apparently lived with their father. Hate-filled messages lashing out at God, Catholics, and Jews, calling themselves sick. One video showing a handwritten floor plan of the church and several weapons. Police say they're still trying to find a motive.
Jay Gray with that report. And you'll notice in a lot of the discussions here about the shooter, Robin, excuse me, geez, not just Joe Nolan having a problem here. You'll notice that the discussions around the shooter, Robin Westman, will use the term there. Well, why is that? It's because Robin, born Robert Westman, was transgender. And that is sort of factoring into the discussion about this because there's been a number of different shooters in Aberdeen, Maryland, I believe, also for sure in Nashville, attacks that were launched by transgender individuals. Now, in and of itself, that might not mean that there's something about being transgender that makes people especially violent or unhinged, but it calls into question some of the stuff that surrounds that. Right? The hormones, the drug therapies, the various aspects of psychology that might come into a younger person that's questioning aspects of their gender. 23-year-old Robin Westman did commit suicide and left behind what's being described as a manifesto. And the FBI investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism, a hate crime targeting Catholics. Annunciation School Principal Matt DeBear.
We lost 2 angels today. And please continue to pray for those still receiving care.
And the principal calling it just an ongoing nightmare, but he says that there were many teachers that acted that day and that they're heroes for protecting their students, saying adults were protecting children, other children were protecting younger children. DeBear talked specifically about actions that teachers took, saying our heroic staff moved students under the pews, and the shooting happened while students, teachers, and staff were attending Mass. And DeBear saying it really could have been significantly worse without the heroic action. That's something that you heard the father there, Jesse Fletcher, talking about. And meanwhile, there's heightened security at houses of worship in New York City and Los Angeles. The NYPD, the LAPD, basically saying no credible threats here, nothing specific, but that they're putting extra patrols up. And the senior director and superintendent of Catholic schools for the LA Archdiocese says they're working with cops to keep campuses safe. Although an earlier ground stop has been lifted for Newark Liberty International Airport, there still are residual delays going to be going up today for the many people getting out of town for the holiday weekend. But the FAA says these are all delays stemming from equipment issues. And you can get more information by checking in with your carrier if you're going to be flying. But you really do want to check the status of your flight, especially at Newark Liberty International Airport, but also JFK and LaGuardia. Either way, with the ground stop having been put into effect yesterday, as you might imagine, many passengers were feeling frustrated.
I just want to go home. I'm going to get to Atlanta and be stuck there for about another 5 hours. If that flight is still there.
Recently, when I've been flying with Newark, I have been having delays since May. So it's been constant delays.
There's nothing we can do.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, unfortunately, that's also true, that it's just been an ongoing reality for Newark Airport going back as far as the spring when you had the whole air traffic control issue, and they tried to address that. But when you hear about equipment issues, it makes you think, all right, some of that older stuff that still runs on like floppy disk or whatever is probably continuing to have some problems. The CDC director has been fired by the White House, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt discussing that yesterday.
It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission.
Health and Human Services has announced that Susan Menarez was no longer the agency's director earlier this week. She at first refused to leave the post. Her lawyers said that was due to her being a person of integrity, devoted to science. And then she also claimed that she was targeted after clashing with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over vaccine policy. The White House says Menarez, as you heard there, not aligned with President Trump's agenda, and that's why she was tossed.
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
WABC News Time, 5:15. We're going to get our latest in sports here in a second, as we'll get more on the CDC in a second. It's now more like the MLB and the NBA and the NHL and all that kind of
very cute.
Justin Ellick on a Friday morning.
Well, it's just the MLB, really. No,
all right, that's fine.
No NHL, not yet.
That's all right.
No NBA, not yet.
Yeah.
NFL, a little bit, maybe.
What about
some
the
big news
WNBA?
yesterday? No. Absolutely not. That'll never be the case.
I'm begging you to stop.
Not with me on the microphone, that's for sure. We'll head out to Chicago here to start. James flipping. Trent Grisham hit a 2-run homer. Jazz Chisholm Jr. added a solo shot as the Yankees extended their winning streak to 5 games with a 10-4 victory over the White Sox. But it was the 2-run shot off the bat of Cody Bellinger that got the scoring started for the Yanks in the first. Bellinger had 3 hits. Grisham homered for the second straight game, and Chisholm finished with 2 hits and an RBI. Yanks homered for the 6th straight game with 18 total in that span. Starter Will Warren pitched 5 innings for the win, allowing 4 runs on 5 hits. Bellinger hit his 26th homer in the first inning. Chisholm belted his 26th in the second, and Grisham added his 27th in the 8th. Manager Aaron Boone said before the game he expects Judge to play the outfield again this season, but had no timetable. Aaron remains at designated hitter as he recovers from a flexor strain in his right elbow. Yankee shortstop Anthony Volpe had 2 hits and an RBI after entering in a 1-for-38 slump over 11 games. Up next for the Yankees, still just a half game back of Boston for second place in the division, and then now 2 games up on Seattle for the AL second wildcard. Carlos Rodon is tabbed to start in tonight's game 2 of 4 against the White Sox. First pitch from Chicago is scheduled for 7:40. In Queens, the Mets dropped their opener of a 4-game set against the visiting Miami Marlins. The final score 7-4. It was a sloppy one for the Mets. Costly errors by first baseman Pete Alonso and left fielder Brandon Nimmo helped the Marlins score 3 unearned runs in the 7th. That propelled them to the victory. Nimmo hit a 2-run double in the first, and Alonso launched a 2-run homer in the 5th, tying it at 4 with his 30th long ball this season. But the Mets made 3 errors in all that led to 5 unearned runs, halting their momentum following a 3-game sweep of the NL East leading Philadelphia Phillies. They fell 5 games behind the Phils, who routed Atlanta 19-4 at home with 28 games remaining in the regular season. The second-place Mets are 4 games in front of Cincinnati for the final NL wild card
And
spot.
Kyle Schwarber had 4 home runs.
What?
In that beatdown. Did you see that?
4?
4 home runs.
Man, he is on some type of run here.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a great year. He had been struggling, and then he has the 4 home runs. But, yeah, how about that? I mean, that's like the 4th time somebody's had 4 home runs this year or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. Nobody's
Third time, maybe?
Nobody's ever going to break that record of
nobody's ever going to have
most
5
home runs in a game. That's crazy. He's got to be leading the NL then, right? In homers, I would think. Kyle Schwarber. You check on that. I'll get done with this Mets update here. Not that we really care about a Philadelphia Phillies slugger, James Flippin.
Yeah, that's true.
God. But if you are a Mets fan, like Flippin, you're going to be looking ahead to tonight. Prize pitching prospect Jonah Tong makes his major league debut in tonight's game 2 of 4 against the visiting Marlins. First pitch from Queens is scheduled for 7:10 p.m. And we do have to get to this huge news out of the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys traded 4-time Pro Bowl edge rusher Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers yesterday. In exchange, the Cowboys received 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Kenny Clark and 2 first-round draft picks. Parsons agreed to a 4-year, $188 million contract with the Packers that includes $120 million fully guaranteed at signing and $136 million in total guarantees, making him the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. So get him out of the division. How about that?
I love it.
49.
49, leading the NL, right?
Yes.
He must be.
Must
Raleigh
be.
Right, 50 for the
right,
NL.
exactly. 49 home runs. If he's not leading the NL, then we're missing a big name there. That's your sports flipping. I'm Justin on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time, 5:21. James Flippin in for Noam Layden as he is on vacation here this week with the summer coming to a close, and we've been talking about the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Apparently, by the way, there's a spike, a late summer surge of COVID-19 cases.
Tracking from the CDC found Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas have reported that 15% of COVID tests are turning up positive. Texas was also one of the 5 states where wastewater data found very high virus activity levels. Despite the surge, reporting from the New York Times suggests the rise in cases is not surprising. Rather, it's a pattern that has occurred every summer since the beginning of the pandemic. I'm Chris Coraggio.
Yeah, I mean, as the whole thing continues to circle, it becomes more contagious but less intense. It's just another one of the many coronaviruses out there, really, at this point. And I'm sure somebody is thinking, no, it's not. How dare you say that? It's a really serious. But who is running the CDC? The White House is giving the top job to a deputy of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., talking about Jim O'Neill, named acting director yesterday. Kennedy has warned Kennedy Jr. that the CDC is in trouble here, but also shared during an interview that the Trump White House is fixing it, indicating it may take some people not working there anymore. So that could have been a reference to Menarez, who's been tossed as the head of the CDC. A former public health official who resigned after the firing of Menarez is raising concerns about the future of the agency. Talking about former CDC Chief Medical Officer Deborah Oury, who resigned alongside some of her colleagues, saying she reached a tipping point where she could no longer stay.
We're not going to be prepared for another outbreak should it happen. We can't prevent chronic diseases in communities because we don't have the resources anymore.
Oury warning the U.S. is not prepared for another outbreak.
This was heartbreaking for me. I loved the CDC. I loved my job, but it came to the tipping point to where I could no longer stay.
And back here in New York City, Mayor Adams continues to not receive public matching funds for his reelection campaign. The New York City Campaign Finance Board distributed funds yesterday to all the other mayoral candidates, including nearly $2 million for Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, about $1.5 million for Republican and independent candidate Curtis Sliwa, and additional allocations to former Governor Andrew Cuomo and independent candidate Jim Walden. The Campaign Finance Board says Mayor Adams has not provided complete information, and they maintain he violated campaign finance laws. Although we do know that the Justice Department dropped corruption and bribery charges that were allegedly connected to things like straw donor manipulation, where people make small donations, but they're really on behalf of somebody else who's trying to make a bigger donation, and it's to kind of skirt those laws. So Republican and independent candidate Curtis Sliwa saying that he had 4,400 individual donors inside of 5 weeks, the average donation $100. And his campaign says they now have over 10,000 individual donors. Sliwa was on Fox Business and said he's focused on reversing the Democrats' total control of New York.
I will be out there side by side with Congresswoman Stefanik from upstate New York to beat Kathy Hochul and this Democratic stranglehold on the state and the city. That's a 1-2 combination. Remember, you had Rudy followed by Pataki. What did we have? We had order, no chaos, no corruption. We could do the 1-2 punch. Sliwa, the Republican candidate for mayor, followed by Stefanik, Congresswoman for governor, will get this city and state back on track, slash taxes, provide public safety.
And as for the fundraising, Curtis says,
I want to check to see on Zohran Mamdani's donors if, in fact, they're bringing in dark money from overseas. I would suggest that the Justice Department immediately look into that, because all of a sudden, from being such a favorite of so many people in New York City, he can't seem to raise money in New York City. He's exhausted that supply. Why it makes sense that he would have not only Soros money, which we know he has, but maybe dark money. Let's investigate that. Let's find out if I am correct or if I am incorrect. But I have a feeling that's what's happening in this election cycle.
Again, that audio courtesy of Fox Business. Speaking of Mayor Adams, he says that he's taking action in the Bronx following a recent string of shootings. The mayor says 1,000 new cops will begin patrolling the Bronx as of this weekend, and they're going to focus on hot spots for gang violence. Mayor Adams also says he's going to try and work with gang leaders themselves.
We're going to reach out to the notable gang members and see if we can sit down around the table and talk about how do we end this violence.
Adams speaking in Haffen Park, where a mass shooting took place at a basketball tournament that left 1 dead and 3 others hurt last Saturday. In total, 4 people were killed and 7 others were injured in 6 different shootings over a 4-day span within the Bronx. Coming Friday, September 5th in Midtown Manhattan, it's 77 WABC's Gala. So, wow, that's just 1 week from today. We're going to kick off the 250th anniversary of America and celebrate 77 WABC being number 1 in the country and the world. There will be some special live performances, including from Lee Greenwood.
And I'm proud to be an American.
He will be the featured guest. He's going to be performing. So we asked him, Lee, what does it mean to be a part of the 250th American birthday celebration?
To celebrate with WABC, which is the 100,000-watt station out of New York, not only is it a privilege, but I know the Castaminis very well. I'm just so excited to be in Newark with them and to kick off this beginning of what will be our 250-year anniversary of the United States of America.
And other guests include Christopher Macchio, who sang the national anthem at Trump's second inauguration. Also, some names that are very familiar to our 77 WABC listeners: Tony Orlando, Cousin Brucey, Joe Piscopo, Vinny Medugno. There are a limited amount of tickets still available at WABCRadioFoundation.org, and that's coming up this coming Friday, September 5th, 77 WABC's Gala. Go to WABCRadioFoundation.org. You can make a donation there. You can also buy your tickets there. WABCRadioFoundation.org, as this event supports Tunnel to Towers Foundation and the Radio Foundation. So, in essence, this is for a good cause, and if you want to make a donation, you can do so. If you want to buy a ticket and come join us, we'd love for you to do that also. It was on this day in 2005, August 29th, when Hurricane Katrina made landfall in Louisiana. So this, the 20th anniversary of Katrina, which devastated New Orleans.
2 decades later, Hurricane Katrina remains one of the most devastating natural disasters in American history, killing over 1,800 people. Most of those deaths were in New Orleans, particularly in low-lying areas like the lower 9th Ward, after the city's levee system collapsed. All told, Katrina caused an estimated $125 billion in damage in 2005 dollars. The government's poor response led to a shakeup at FEMA, an agency still under scrutiny today. I'm Rory O'Neill.
WABC News Time, 5:30. So when we come back here, we're going to talk more about the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Also, stuff to tell you about in terms of tariffs, a new casino contender for Manhattan, and what to expect for the Labor Day travel, the Labor Day getaway, that and more leading into Sid and Friends in the Morning. James Flippin in for Noam Layden on the 5 a.m. News Hour.
The 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Layden.
On 77 WABC. Listen anytime. 77WABCRadio.com and the 77 WABC app. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Good morning, James Flippin filling in for Noam on this Friday, August 29th. Mostly cloudy skies around the tri-state. 67 degrees right now in Midtown. Here's your 3-day 77 WABC weather forecast. Later today, we do have a 20% chance of rain in the afternoon. Mostly sunny, a high near 79. And then overnight going into Saturday, mostly clear, getting down to 57. Tomorrow's high, 77 WABC degrees. And then Sunday, sunny skies expected with a high near 79. So a week from today will be 77 WABC's annual gala in Midtown Manhattan. Tickets are available at WABCRadioFoundation.org. Lee Greenwood of God Bless the USA fame will be one of our featured guests.
Great organizations, all three. My friend, of course, Frank Stiller, which I got to know directly after the attack on America. and the sacrifice and the loss of the firemen in the trade towers. It was so immediately inspiring for me to join with Tunnels to Towers, and of course the police and the league that is supported with this great charity. And I thank WABC also for acknowledging that, because we don't want to get ever lost in history. This is a big moment.
And Tunnel to Towers Foundation, a beneficiary of the fundraising. That's what Lee is talking about there. We're going to have the full interview with Lee Greenwood up on our site, but tickets for the gala at WABCRadioFoundation.org. New Orleans set to commemorate the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina today. A wreath-laying ceremony going to take place on Canal Street, where a number of unidentified and unclaimed bodies of victims from the storm have been laid to rest. Another wreath-laying ceremony set for the lower 9th Ward, that low-lying area that was especially hard hit when the levee system failed. And there are several other historic and cultural events going on today in New Orleans. The U.S. global tariff exemption for low-cost goods ends today. It's the nearly century-old de minimis exemption, which allowed items worth less than $800 to be shipped to America duty-free or without having to pay any tariffs. Japan, India, and many European nations already announced suspensions of U.S.-bound shipments. Shoppers in the U.S. who order goods from overseas could soon start seeing cancellation notices as a result of all that. Back in New York, there's a new entry in the battle to win a casino license.
A Manhattan developer is proposing a Hell's Kitchen casino and at this point seems to be getting a warm reception from the community. Silverstein Properties is vying with 8 bidders to win one of 3 coveted licenses for a downstate New York casino. The Avenir at 41st Street and 11th Avenue would be a 42-story tower set on a vacant lot. No one would be displaced, and 500 affordable housing units would be included, as well as a 1,000-room hotel. I'm Lisa Ritchie for 77 WABC News.
The Labor Day travel period underway. According to AAA, the best times to get to and from your Labor Day spot are today before noon, so get moving, or tomorrow between 6 and 10 a.m., and then Sunday before 11. Labor Day weekend gas prices expected to be their lowest since 2020. That's per Gas Buddy. And the average gallon checking in at $3.15. And that's the cheapest summer gas prices since the pandemic. The cost of your Labor Day barbecue is going up. That's per the Bureau of Labor Statistics, saying grocery prices are up 2% from this time last year on average. That is pretty much what inflation, I guess, is supposed to be. But the cost of the barbecue will vary depending on where you live. A recent analysis of ingredients shows New York City is among the spots that had the highest increase in costs. But in terms of what you're looking at individually, the price of steak, lettuce, and cooking oil have all shown notable increases. Labor Day coming Monday. I'll be here with you, 5 a.m., giving Noam the day off, extend his little end of the summer vacation here. So did you know the trendiest aspect of the U.S. Open is now 18 years old? Talking about the 20th anniversary of Katrina. Well, it's the 18th anniversary for the Honey Deuce, which is the big drink at the U.S. Open. The cherry blossom pink-colored vodka concoction. They put these honeydew melon balls in there that I guess are supposed to look like tennis balls. And they sell hundreds of thousands of these drinks every summer. Last year, for example, they sold 557,000 Honey Deuces. It's got lemonade, raspberry liqueur, vodka, a commemorative plastic cup that everybody's got to have, but a whopping $12.8 million in sales last summer for the Honey Deuce. Apparently, there are a bunch of good sales out there this weekend, so says Forbes. More now from our business desk.
As examples, Forbes vetting cites Patagonia. They've just added new styles to their sales selection with fleeces, vests, and other items marked up to 60% off. Madewell's women's sale items are discounted an additional 40% off. Hannah Anderson has 40% off on boys and girls clothing. Everlane has sales for up to 70% off on fall staples like their boxy sweater. And Forbes' list goes on and on. Joe Connolly, 77 WABC News.
WABC News time, 5:41. So having gotten that update, traffic and transit from Joe Nolan, you may have heard about this horrific crash recently down in Florida, an illegal U-turn made by a tractor trailer. and it led to a horrific wreck. It's been blamed on an immigrant from India who was the truck driver, and he may not speak or read English. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says an investigation into that deadly crash found major issues with how certain states are following rules that began in June under President Trump's executive order, an executive order that says basically don't give truck driver's licenses to people who can't read road signs in English. Washington, New Mexico, and California in particular looked at here. Secretary Duffy says truck drivers must demonstrate English proficiency for safety reasons, and he argues compliance is not political, even though obviously so much has been going on with immigration crackdown and stuff like that. If these states don't comply with the executive order, California could lose $33 million, Washington $10.5 million, and New Mexico $7 million in terms of spending cuts and response. So California Governor Gavin Newsom says that this is the Trump administration looking to shift blame for the incident in Florida. So let's go to trains for a second and all this transportation talk. The Trump administration, speaking of California, cutting another $175 million in federal funding for the Golden State's high-speed rail project. Secretary Duffy says the project's a boondoggle, and he's questioned the nearly $14 billion already spent. He suggests the estimated cost of $135 billion could fund nearly 200 round-trip tickets for each person in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Rail officials argue the project will benefit more than just those cities. The TSA says it will screen more than 17 million people during the Labor Day travel period.
The travel period runs to September 4th, with the peak travel day projected to be August 30th. TSA expects this to be the busiest Labor Day travel period on record, as the agency anticipates passenger volumes to be 8.5% higher than last year during this time. Air travel volumes this summer are the highest the agency has seen in its history, and the top 10 busiest travel days in the agency's history have all occurred this year. Lisa G., 77 WABC News.
Yeah, I feel like we say that every year. This is going to be the busiest travel holiday season ever. Maybe we should worry when it's not. Like maybe that's just a sign of the population continuing to, I don't know, grow or expand. People having more time on their hands. Probably a good thing. Washington has become the first state to adopt restrictions on more than 24 chemicals used in cosmetic products that can release formaldehyde.
The products can include shampoos, eyelash glue, nail polishes, and hair treatments. There are cosmetic products on the market that do the same thing without releasing formaldehyde. The new restrictions take effect January 1st, 2027. Retailers have until December 31st, 2027 to sell their existing stock of products that contain the chemicals. I'm Brad Ford.
Down in Florida, a real-life superhero, a caped crusader, gets the credit for catching a burglar in the process of stealing from a neighbor in southwest Florida. Yep, we're talking about a real-life Batman here, people. Officers with the Cape Coral Police Department showed up at a home early Wednesday to find a suspect already detained by a neighbor wearing Batman pajamas.
We're trying to help you. What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Kyle Mevitt says he noticed a man rummaging through his truck but couldn't catch him, and later discovered 20-year-old Justin Schimple inside a neighbor's garage. Mevitt then detained the suspect until cops arrived, and police say Schimple, who has a history of previous encounters with law enforcement, stole designer sunglasses, jewelry, cash, and over $500 in gift cards from the vehicle of Mevitt and his neighbor. He now faces multiple charges. Before leaving the scene, cops took a photo with the hero, still wearing his Batman onesie.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
WABC News Time, 5:45, and so we go from the rooftops of Gotham to the Diamond?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what that was. What was that?
A guy who stopped a burglar down in Florida while wearing his Batman pajamas.
Okay. Wow. All right, good for him.
Yeah.
I guess he's he caped Crusader, right?
Yeah, he's the Dark Knight. Just like we're kind of hoping that Jonah Tong can be like a young Matt Harvey.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I guess. We'll see. He's making his major league debut
you're not
tonight.
That, but I'm hoping that.
I guess
Justin
I'm
Alec
surrounded by ineptitude.
Well, see? Yes.
Clearly. And now, because Flippin brought up the Mets, I got to start with the losers from last night. They dropped their opener of a 4-game set against the visiting Miami Marlins. The final score 7-4. Costly errors by first baseman Pete Alonso and left fielder Brandon Nimmo helped the Marlins score 3 unearned runs in the 7th that propelled them to the victory. Nimmo hit a 2-run double in the first, and Alonso launched a 2-run homer in the 5th, tying it at 4 with his 30th long ball of the year. But the Mets made 3 errors in all that led to 5 unearned runs, halting their momentum following a 3-game sweep of the division-leading Phillies. They fell 5 games behind Philadelphia, who routed Atlanta 19-4 at home. Kyle Schwarber had 4 home runs, and there are 28 games remaining in the regular season schedule. The second-place Mets are 4 games in front of Cincinnati for the final National League wild card. Mets starter Clay Holmes went 5 innings and committed a costly error of his own. He dropped a throw he had to reach for from Alonso while covering first base with 2 outs in the 3rd, leading to 2 unearned runs there. New York dropped to 10-15 in August and 4-3 against Miami this year. Up next for the Mets, of course, that prize pitching prospect in Jonah Tong makes his major league debut in tonight's Game 2 of 4 against the visiting Marlins. First pitch from Queens is scheduled for 7:10 p.m. In Chicago, Trent Grisham hit a 2-run homer, and Jazz Chisholm Jr. added a solo shot as the Yankees extended their winning streak to 5 games with the 10-4 victory over the White Sox. But it was a 2-run shot off the bat of Cody Bellinger that got the scoring started for the Yanks in the first. Here's what that sounded like, courtesy of the Yes Network.
The 0-2. Bellinger, yep. Wind going out to right. Ball going out to right. Goodbye. A 2-run shot for Cody Bellinger's 26th of the season. And the Yankees an early 2-0 lead.
Thanks to our buddy Ryan Rucco on the call there. Bellinger had 3 hits. Grisham homered for the 2nd straight game, and Chisholm finished with 2 hits and an RBI. The Yankees homered for the 6th straight game with 18 total in that span. Starter Will Warren pitched 5 innings for the win, allowing 4 runs on 5 hits. Bellinger hit his 26th homer in the 1st. Chisholm his 26th in the 2nd, and Grisham his 27th in the 8th. Manager Aaron Boone said before the game he expects Aaron Judge to play the outfield again this season, but had no timetable. Judge remains at DH as he recovers from that flexor strain in his right elbow. Shortstop Anthony Volpe had 2 hits and an RBI after entering in a 1-for-38 slump over 11 games. Up next for the Yankees, still just a half game back of Boston for 2nd in the division, and now 2 games up on Seattle for the AL 2nd wild card. Carlos Rodon is tabbed to start in tonight's Game 2 of 4 against the White Sox. First pitch from Chicago scheduled for 7:40 p.m. And to the NFL, big news. The Dallas Cowboys traded 4-time Pro Bowl edge rusher Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers yesterday. In exchange, the Cowboys received 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Kenny Clark and 2 first-round draft picks. Parsons agreed to a 4-year, $188 million contract with the Packers. That includes $120 million fully guaranteed at signing, making him the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Obviously, a lot of offseason drama between him, Jerry Jones, and the Dallas Cowboys. And Jones did have a 46-minute news conference yesterday, and he said he ultimately made the trade. Here's a kicker: to help the team win now. How does that make much sense? I'm not really sure. That's your sports. James Flippin, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Jerry Jones, the gift that keeps on giving. So,
my God.
WABC News Time, 5:51. James Flippin in for the vacationing Noam Laden, who is out in California. We were just down in Florida to talk about the Batman pajamas guy who stopped a burglar. Well, in the Everglades, officials say the Robot Rabbits project is still in its early stages, but initial results are promising. So Robot Rabbits, what's this all about? The state of Florida has introduced these robot bunnies as part of its efforts to stop the invasive Burmese python population from continuing to grow in the Everglades. The South Florida Water Management District collaborated with the University of Florida to deploy 120 of these robot rabbits, and the hope is to lure the elusive snakes from out in their hiding spots. The $4,000 mechanical decoys mimic the appearance, movement, and even the scent of real marsh rabbits, the favorite prey of the pythons. So, alligator Alcatraz may be on its way out, sort of a loss for South Florida, but maybe this robot rabbits one is a win. Artificial intelligence is posing a threat to entry-level jobs. That's per a study from Stanford University, which found that entry-level jobs for workers between the ages of 22 and 25 have declined by 13% since the widespread adoption of artificial intelligence technology. And researchers say that declines in employment are happening in jobs that are most exposed to AI, and that can include software developers, customer service representatives. I can speak to that. I remember calling up this allergy doctor and for the first half of the call, not realizing that it was an AI thing that I was talking to. But then you just realize it's almost a little too perfect, a little too on point with the responses that they have. It can also include computer programming, receptionists, and others. Researchers have acknowledged that estimates may be influenced by other factors, but they say results are consistent with the hypothesis that generative AI has begun to significantly affect entry-level employment. WhatsApp is rolling out a new AI feature that helps users with writing. Writing Help lets users get AI-generated suggestions that rewrite messages in, reportedly, a professional, funny, or supportive way. The AI can rephrase a message to change its tone. The new Writing Help feature, part of an effort to steer users away from ChatGPT to WhatsApp's own in-app technology. Google is warning its 2.5 billion Gmail users to change their passwords. Apparently, there was a significant amount of successful intrusions by hackers recently.
The tech giant put out a warning this week advising Gmail users to be on high alert for suspicious activity and to add extra security measures like two-factor authentication. Google says that the hackers often access Gmail passwords by sending emails with links to fake sign-in pages and have been targeting people by posing as IT support staff. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook is filing a lawsuit after President Trump moved to fire her. The suit start of a legal battle between the two sides that will likely end up in front of the Supreme Court. It follows a Justice Department criminal investigation into the board governor. She's been accused of making false statements on home mortgage applications. And Trump has been calling for the Federal Reserve to cut rates for months. The expectation is the central bank will start to do that this coming month. Cook's lawyer says Trump has no authority to remove her and that the firing lacks factual or legal basis. Let's go down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Now, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke.
UNC head football coach Bill Belichick, his girlfriend wants to trademark the term gold digger for a line of jewelry and keychains. The 24-year-old Jordan Hudson is 49 years younger than her boyfriend, the former Patriots coach who is about to lead his first season with the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. And the trademark application was filed through TCE Rights Management, the company that Belichick owns and Hudson manages. The CDC is putting an end to those long-running smoking ads that have helped many Americans quit smoking. It's called the Tips from Former Smokers campaign. I know I always think of the one where the woman, I think it was, had to have the tracheotomy, and so she's holding the thing up like it makes it hard to shower and, that type of thing. It started 13 years ago. It's going to go off the air at the end of September because of funding cuts. The campaign has featured people telling stories about the negative impact smoking cigarettes had on their lives, urging others to get help quitting. Data shows the campaign led to millions attempting to quit, with more than 1 million people successfully having quit. Samsung is going to hold a virtual event next week to show off something new. The company isn't saying exactly yet what it plans to announce, but the Unpacked event will be streamed live September 4th. And that's coming up on Thursday, 5:30 in the morning, on the company's YouTube page. By the way, Apple will hold its iPhone 17 event September 9th. One of the versions of the 17 is anticipated to be the thinnest iPhone ever. Apple also expected to announce updated versions of the Apple Watch Series 11, Ultra 3, SE 3, and an AirPods update could also be included at that event. And speaking of upgrades, rather than sit in traffic on the GWB, wouldn't it be nicer to ride a ferry between New Jersey and Harlem?
Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine wants to revive a ferry route between Harlem and New Jersey.
We need to fill in what is largely a blank part of the New York City ferry map. This is the perfect place to do it.
Levine says there used to be a ferry between the West Harlem Pier at 125th Street and Edgewater, New Jersey, but now the only way to get there is via the George Washington Bridge. He says a ferry ride would just take 3 minutes, and the piers are already built. I'm Lisa Ritchie, 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time, 5:59, and this is the 5 a.m. News Hour, hosted by Noam Laden. I'm James Flippin filling in, given he's on vacation, but coming your way in just moments, the last sit-in Friends in the morning of the unofficial summer, as, of course, Labor Day is when it sort of comes to a close. So let's check in with Justin Ellick, the executive producer, and see what is coming up on the show today.
Well, thank you for that, James Flippin. Thank you very much indeed. Friday morning edition, Sid and Friends in the Morning, coming at you just around the corner. Kicking us off here today in the way of guests, it's going to be our good buddy, Anthony D'Esposito, of course, the great former congressman, still the nominee to become the Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Labor. He will join us in the 6 a.m. hour at around 6:45 this morning. Right before Curtis Lewa is live here in studio in the 7 a.m. hour, around 7:35, KT McFarland, the great former Deputy National Security Advisor, will join us right around 7:50, as she does every Friday morning with Sid. Norm Coleman, Sid's great cousin, and the former mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, and of course the former senator from Minnesota as well, will join us in the 8 a.m. hour. Around 8:35, the great lawman Joe Tacopina joins us around 8:50 for his weekly Friday morning hit with Sid, and in the 9 a.m. hour, Maria Bartiromo, the great Fox Business voice on television there. All coming up, Sid and Friends in the morning. James Flippin coming at you in a few short moments.
Thank you very much, Justin. So President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, was just on the show yesterday. He says there's going to be a major deportation push in Chicago. Also support pouring in from across the country as Minneapolis continues to mourn. And New Orleans is marking the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. James Flippin here on the 5 a.m. News Hour. Sid and Friends in the Morning coming up next.
Entertaining and informative talk for New York. Streaming now on your smart speakers. Play 77 WABC.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams Labor Day sale and get 35% off paints and stains August 22nd through September 4th. With prices starting at $31.84, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your interior or exterior, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.